We have German friends and we have American friends, but trust me, a friend in one country is not the same as a friend in the other. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby, sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. One of our biggest goals of moving to Germany was, of course, getting invested in the local culture and community to try and learn from them about their different world views. But also, maybe not as deep, but we just wanted some friends to hang out with. I mean, we moved all the way from the US to Germany where we had no friends or family, so we were seeking out friendships with those around us to have some fun too. Now that we've been living in Germany for 3.5 years, we've built up a community of friends that include many Germans, and through these friendships, we have learned there are some very interesting differences in how Germans and Americans approach making new friends, hanging out with their friends, interacting with their friends, and even how long they stay friends. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in my video. When two cultures blend, can they become a friend? On internations.org, the Expat Insider publishes data based on surveys from foreigners living in countries around the world and what their experiences are like moving to those countries and living there. One metric they look at is the ease of settling in index, which is based on 3 subcategories, one of which is actually ease of finding friends. If we look at this list, well, at the very bottom of the list, we see Germany. Out of 52 countries ranked, Germany ranks 48th in ease of settling in, 50th in culture and welcome, 48th in local friendliness, and 46th in finding friends. And I'll say, as someone in the community of foreigners living in Germany, that this is a very common experience amongst foreigners living in Germany. So why is Germany and Germans often perceived this way? Well, Germans are often described as being nuts. Well, sorry, I mean coconuts. This metaphor says they have hard outer shells, but soft and sweet insides, just like coconuts. But what about Americans? Well, we had one viewer that once left a comment that does a great job at summing up the cultural differences in making friends in the US versus in Germany that said, "I love the coconut metaphor for Germans, hard shell, sweet core. There's the second part of that metaphor though that equates Americans to peaches with a soft shell but well protected core. The wonderful truth about this metaphor is that it takes a similar amount of persistence to get into the actual center core of someone's personality, i.e. to become very close friends. The only difference for most Germans that effort goes into breaking the hard shell and then you get closer more easily, whereas for Americans you get to a certain point very easily but then have to put effort in to get really close. Based on our personal experiences, we have found this metaphor to be relatively true in many of our social interactions, and it seems in reading your comments over the years, many of you have similar experiences as well. We often get comments about Americans being very superficial and fake, and Germans being harsh and rude. A lot of times this problem seems to arise when one doesn't understand the differences in culture or even language, and they automatically look at the other through their own cultural lens or cultural bias and perceive the other negatively. As an example, Americans love small talk to build a relationship and connection with other people, which is like them letting you through the soft outer shell of that metaphorical peach. But that same person won't get into deep personal conversations with you too quickly because he may be feeling you out and protecting himself, aka not letting you into that hard core of the peach. This is also true with the popular comment we get, Americans always ask you how you're doing but don't really care about you. Well, that is a language issue and misunderstanding of American culture. How are you is not a translation of Wie geht es Ihnen? It is a translation of Hallo. Once you get through that outer soft shell, invest time, and are able to crack that inner core, how are you will become Wie geht es dir, but the difference will be obvious in the way it is delivered and the connection the two parties have. In terms of Germans, they are going to be efficient and direct when they talk to you because of their cultural norms and because they have this hard outer shell. For an American, it may feel like they aren't letting you in because of some personal problem they have with you, but you just have to put the work in earlier than if they are American to get close to them. Once they let you crack that shell, you will see just how friendly, hospitable, and warm the German people genuinely can be. Of course, this is all generally speaking, and there are definitely exceptions to all of these cases, but overall the lesson is, don't look at a culture through your culture's lens, no matter how much it seems you have in common, like the US and Germany seem to have. There are still subtle differences, and it is important to recognize and appreciate those differences to more accurately communicate with one another rather than wondering why they don't conform to your social standards. All lessons that we have learned since moving here. By the way, you would be a real friend if you took a moment to hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. Also, a big thanks to all of our patrons who support our work over on Patreon. You guys really are awesome. As a result of the coconut versus peach differences in making friends in Germany and the US, there are some interesting differences in German and American friend relationships. One of the first big differences is how large or small German and American friendship circles tend to be.
Hello, I'm Melissa Lamson, an expert in intercultural communication. I'm here to talk to you about cultural differences between Germans and Americans. The concept of friendship is interesting because if you ask an American how many friends they have, they'll say thousands. When you ask a German, they might say 5 or 10, and the rest are colleagues or acquaintances.
But there also are a few key things to remember here as well. Of those large friendship circles in the US, most of those aren't going to be very, very close friends, and to a German, probably wouldn't even be considered a friend at all. According to Germanway.com, the English word friend covers a much wider range of acquaintance levels than German Freund. In English, the distinction between friend and acquaintance is often blurred. Sometimes the words are used interchangeably. The term Freund in German implies a long, deep friendship, not a casual acquaintance. German speakers make a clear distinction between Freund, friend, and Bekannte, acquaintance. These words are never used interchangeably. Another result of the different definitions of what a friend or Freund is and the coconut and peach difference, there does seem to be a difference in how long people are friends in the US and Germany. I would probably say for many, if not most Americans, most of that huge friend circle exists in this part of the peach. Not all of those friends eventually make it into the pit of the peach, but a select group eventually can make their way into the hard inner core, and those friends are going to last a long time and will stick with you. Because Germans take so long to let someone crack the outer shell, those that eventually do get in do stereotypically last a lifetime. Well, at least that is the stereotype, and maybe I will be able to report back to you in a few decades to let you know if that's true in my personal experience, but this is often something foreigners that move to Germany talk about when saying how difficult it is to get in with the local German community. Germans tend to have these extremely tight, close connections to their childhood friends and aren't really looking for any more. Whereas with Americans, for example, our friendship circles are constantly evolving throughout different life stages, but we do have a few close friends that will stick out through life and as other friends come and go. Okay, so we've maybe briefly established what is a friend to Germans and Americans. So let's now say that we have German and American friends. How these friends hang out and interact can be very different. Let's first tackle a hilarious difference in expectations when it comes to hanging out between Germans and American friends. And when we started experiencing it, I took to the internet to see if any other foreigners in Germany were having the same experience that we were having. On Reddit, I found a post by a foreigner living in Germany from Asia who confirmed we weren't the only ones and that this truly is a cultural difference. The dilemma this foreigner was having was they would invite Germans over and then they would never leave. Okay, they obviously would eventually leave, but a comment on this post explained why this was the case. It said, most Germans consider an invitation over dinner as an all-evening commitment and might even feel terrible if they would leave you so early after having eaten at your place. I had hosts apologize to me in advance a day before that a certain appointment, board games and cooking, we set up would end early, meaning starting at like 2 p.m. and ending around 9 p.m. as it was a Saturday and they expected me to have committed my full day to their event, and they cut it short due to being tired. So I'm going to try and do my best at explaining this, but unlike Germans who generally would make a plan and the expectation is that they have committed their whole day to this hangout, Americans will plan just for the event planned, but may leave it open to see how the event is going as to how long they would hang out. Sure, maybe Americans would spend an entire day with friends, but that's generally if that is planned out specifically to be that way, or if everybody just keeps having fun and keeps suggesting to do more and more, not just assume that was what was going to happen in advance, if that makes any sense. Let me tell you a story to see if this helps explain the difference even more. So when we very first moved here, we had some very nice German friends invite us over in the afternoon to hang out. They had invited us over to have lunch or coffee and cake or something like that. And in Aubrey, in my mind, as Americans, that meant we would go over, stay a couple of hours for that planned coffee or lunch or whatever it was, but had our late afternoon and evenings free to do whatever we would like to do. However, what happened was we ate lunch, of course sat around and talked for a little bit, and then Aubrey and I said the American version of the German knee slap and so, which is a long drawn out well, and then we started standing to leave when all of a sudden we looked up, saw the confused look on our German friends' faces, and then they told us about the coffee we hadn't had yet, the Spaziergang we hadn't gone on yet, the wine bottle they hadn't brought out yet, etc. And this has become a pretty consistent thing. We now know that if we invite Germans over or if they invite us over on a Saturday or a Sunday, we need to plan to hang out the entire day and possibly even into the evening, whether or not they said that is exactly what we're going to be doing specifically or not. Now, with everything, I don't want to generalize and say this is 100% always the case. But this has been extremely consistent with our German friends across different generations as well. Again, I also don't think this is a bad thing. Just an interesting cultural difference we had to grow accustomed to, and now that we know what to expect, we don't mind it at all. But just like the Reddit response I read earlier, also for example, if one of our German friends has some other plans the same day, they will be very direct about a hard cutoff time they will need to leave by or the event end by, because they want you to know up front that for that day, the normal all-day commitment won't be happening. Now let's talk about that directness like I just mentioned with the hard cutoff times for hangouts. When it comes to hanging out and making plans, there is another difference that we have learned when it comes to our German friends that follows a very classic stereotype about Germans, and that is that they are significantly more direct about things than our American friends. For example, one American friend might suggest to go do a particular activity. The American receiving the invitation might not necessarily want to do that activity, but they won't want to make their friend not do something that they want to do, so they'll just complain privately but agree to do that activity anyways. Or they'll beat around the bush and try to get out of doing that activity and replace it with a different activity rather than just saying, actually, that doesn't sound fun to me. Let's do something instead. For our German friends, they'll just tell us they don't want to do something and suggest another thing they want to do instead. Now, our German friends don't bulldoze all of the hangouts and just selfishly do only what they want to do, but they are much more direct about what they want to do and suggesting it to the rest. Along with their directness, they are also very open when someone else is direct and says they don't want to do that and suggests another idea. They are happy to hear that as well. This is also the case with choosing a place to go out and eat. Ask a group of Americans where they want to go eat and you'll often be told, oh, I'm fine with whatever. And then you spend the next 3 hours trying to agree on a place to eat because nobody wants to be the one that suggests something that somebody else might not want to eat. Ask a German where they would want to go eat and boom, they will tell you right then and there what they want. Overall, I will admit it has been very refreshing to have friends that are so much more direct. Sometimes we laugh because we're American culture, we leave things a little vague and open so that there can be discussion and give others a chance to slip in what they might like to do, and they do the same thing to give us a chance to say what we want without stepping on toes. So when a German just says a matter-of-factly what they would prefer without playing the social games that we are used to, it feels a little funny to us, but it certainly makes things much more streamlined, and it is nice when you just want to do something and you don't waste any time him-hawing about it. We recently were invited to a German friend's birthday party at a restaurant, and we enjoyed a lovely meal with a couple of families. At the end of the meal, the waiter came by and asked the birthday boy if we were ready for the check. When doing this, the waiter also asked the usual question, separate or together, and the one whose birthday it was answered together and to bring him the check. I was so embarrassed because this was so not the usual for American culture. In the US, when you go out to celebrate a friend's birthday, usually the guests would either sneak over to the waiter and tell them they will be paying for the birthday boy or girl's meal, or all the guests would pitch in to pay for the birthday person's meal. The normal routine is also for the birthday person to refuse a couple of times before finally accepting the gifted meal so that they don't come across as needy though. But in no case would the person being celebrated pay for their meal on their birthday, and definitely not for everybody else. So when my friend whose birthday it was said that they would pay, based on my cultural norms, I felt like a terrible friend because I hadn't gotten up to pay the waiter for his family's meal, but all of the German friends wouldn't let me do that. The other friend who was there was also German, looked at me confused because he could see my concern, and explained that no, in Germany, it is the responsibility of the friend whose birthday it is to pay for everybody's meal because they invited us to the meal. Then the whole table explained how it is normal in Germany to set aside some money every month so that on your birthday you can afford to take all your friends out for a meal to celebrate your birthday. Now they also went on to explain other traditions, like on your birthday it is your duty to bring cake to your office for everybody to enjoy, whereas again, in the US, your coworkers would surprise you with a cake on your birthday. So I'll have to be honest and say that I'm very open-minded about different cultures and their traditions and accepting them for what they are, but this I can't figure out the justification for. Rather than a birthday being something to make you feel celebrated, it instead feels like it becomes a burden on you and would make me not want to celebrate with friends because of the potential financial hardship it could bring. So Germans, I'm going to give you a chance. In the comments below, can you give me your best justifications for why this is the tradition rather than your friends treating you and celebrating you on your birthday? But what about a non-birthday regular dinner that friends get together for? Who pays then? Well, this is going to vary widely depending on the friends and the circumstances, but from my personal experience, Germans tend to split the bill and pay for their own meal without any question. However, when I'm with American friends, it is definitely not uncommon to fight over who pays for the meal as a kind gesture to your friend. There can even be a little awkward moment when the American waiter asks together or separate, in which American friends don't want to be the first to say separate and offend the other by not at least offering to pay for the other. Again, this isn't a hard and fast rule that Americans always pay for each other, and Germans never hesitate or even question splitting the bill, but as a tendency, this is something that I have noticed in our social circles. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is there one random skill or party trick, like walking on your hands, solving a Rubik's Cube, or using any random object as a bottle opener that you wish you could do? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you in our next video. We have German friends and we have American friends, but wait, what the heck? When did this happen? Shoot.